Salut.
Hi, Nada.
How are you?
Good, how are you?
Very good. Is
Okay.
there a way to put a background on this?
No, unfortunately, there's a green screen option, but then you need a green screen on the back.
Okay. Because I wanted to put the background that you provided us, like the Creative Collision and KPMG something.
Oh, okay. Yeah, no, Hopin has that limitation.
Okay, so I'm good.
Okay, yeah, I'll go and check other breakout sessions as well, and I'll be back here. Okay. And Nada, so I added you as a moderator. So below you see like a moderation panel as well.
Yeah,
If you don't recognize, like you have option to choose people who come on screen. Ideally, we don't want to choose anyone. So all the people who are supposed to be moderators, they have the access.
perfect. So I'll
Okay.
just be
Yeah,
speaking briefly and that's it.
yeah,
My colleague will be
yeah,
taking over.
yeah. Sounds good. Okay, I'll see you soon. Bye.
Je commence, papa.
Non, moi, je serai même peut-être pas là, moi. Je serai pas là, moi. Je la laisse travailler, moi. C'est important. C'est important, maman. Oui. Moi, je vais marcher dehors, je vais faire un truc.
Peut-être vous mettre sur mute pour pas qu'on puisse entendre la conversation qui se passe en arrière de vous.
Hi, Manuel. You are on mute.
How are you?
Hello. I'm good. Okay. You see it.
This question is going to be more in English or in French because I have both of presentations.
So this particular room is bilingual. So we'll have the presentations both in English and in French. So whatever I think you prefer.
Okay, so I'm going to present in French. I think Jérôme and I don't know about Jérôme, but Jérôme is like maybe more francophone.
Sure, sounds good. I think Jeremy is here, might be seeing us right now.
Hi, Jérôme. Sorry. Ah non, Jérémy. J'ai mis un Y avec Petigny et puis j'ai remplacé Jérôme par Jérémy, excuse-moi.
Aucun souci.
Ça va bien?
Oui, ça va bien. Hi Simran.
Je suis contente d'avoir cette conversation plus ouverte qu'un pitch pour aller au fin fond.
Ouais.
Ça va toi? C'est pas trop avec le projet, défi climat, tout ça, c'est pas trop de travail, ça va?
C'est du travail, mais ça va.
Hi, Michael.
Hello.
How are you?
Good. How are you?
I'm good, thank you.
Great.
I actually changed the timing for breakout sessions to 2 p.m. so that all of us can see. But people who were there on Hopin before, they have to refresh the screen in order to see that.
Yeah.
So I just noticed this bug. If you guys want to try sharing your screen in the meantime, till we start the sessions, so you can try one by one. I'll be back to the session again. If any technical difficulties, in the meantime, you can try sharing your sessions. I'll be back.
Perfect.
Great.
I'll probably reconnect in a few minutes as well. Thank you.
Right.
How are we sharing the screen?
You can look at the bottom of your of the little thumbnails of the videos. Tu as un écran qui est barré.
Ah, parfait, d'accord. I just want to no, I cannot. Because maybe someone is sharing.
Yeah, I just tested it.
Okay. Ok, je vais juste tester pour. Non, ça. Non, c'est marrant parce que je peux pas avoir l'option de share the screen.
Okay, moi, ça me le propose, mais j'ai rien à partager, donc c'est pas grave.
Parce que moi, c'est en grisé, comme si on m'autorisait pas à partager l'écran.
Ok.
Je sais pas comment. Je pense qu'il doit y avoir une option au niveau de l'organisation, peut-être.
Maybe we'll ask Simran if she can help you on that.
Okay.
Anyway, I'm back in 5.
Okay, thank you.
How are you?
Very good. Yourself?
Good.
Hi, Emmanuel. I just saw your message.
Yeah.
Okay. So your screen share is not working?
Yeah, because like it's in gray. It's like I cannot have the option to share.
Okay. Can you let me know what's happening? Like, what do you see? Maybe I can try to troubleshoot something.
Yeah, I can send you like an email of what I have.
Okay. If not, we'll try to find a volunteer to share it for you.
I think, yeah, you can send you like the presentation also, but I think it's just because I don't have the option to share. So I think it's like on the admin part. But I'm sharing like the presentation to you and like the picture of what happened like this. You have both.
I don't see anything. One of the things that we can try is maybe if you can refresh your screen, come back again and try sharing your screen. If not, let's try to find a different way.
No, but I think it's like it's more on your side that I sent you like the what I have. Just sent to you.
Did you send it to me through email?
I think I sent to someone. Okay, I make a mistake. I just send everything to everyone. I'm just sending it to you again. Did you receive it?
Let me see. Which email are you sending, Emmanuel?
Yeah, this one.
Yeah. Okay, let me see if it's.
Hey, Simran.
Hello.
Just wanted to let you know that my colleague Andrew Ross, he's there.
Oh.
Perfect.
Hi, Andrew.
Hello.
Can you guys hear me okay?
Yeah.
Great.
Okay. I haven't received it. Let me check this.
Sorry, you're talking to me?
No, I was just saying that I didn't receive the email.
How come?
Not sure.
Okay, so do you have another address? Or I mean,
yeah, let me text you on Messenger. I think we have a Messenger group.
Because it's sent. I mean, c'est marqué envoyé hein, dans mes emails, dans les éléments envoyés. À moins que tu veux que je l'envoie que je le forward sur une autre adresse email.
I'm sorry, I don't know French.
Oh, sorry.
I'm so sorry.
but in my Outlook, it's already wrote sent. So
Okay.
I can forward to someone to another email if you want, but I don't know what I can do there.
I just received.
Okay, perfect. Just like a couple of minutes, thank you. So you see, I took the snapshot of, and I cannot share. Like, you see, it's kind of, I don't have the option to share. I think it's more, or maybe like I apply for this event as a speaker. Maybe I should have applied as a startup, or maybe
No. Okay, I know why it's happening. So when you click on share, the option that you see, click on that as well. So if
Click
you, so the where you see all of us on Hopin, click on that part as well before sharing. So first, let me. So when you see entire screen, the small blurb, like the small window that you see, you need to click on that part as well. So try. So
okay, sorry about that. So stupid. I'm so stupid. Okay, so
we want to test it out so we can see.
Okay, so maybe, thank you. I think everyone. Okay, so
Okay, awesome.
Okay, thank you.
Jeremy, Michael, Andrew, are you gonna share your screen by any chance or no? Okay, so do you want to test it out?
I already tested it and it worked fine.
Okay, awesome.
And you know how to do it right away.
Okay, that's good. I'm gonna go check other breakout sessions as well, and I'll be back. So Ilias is just finishing the main panel, so he will be here in like next 5 minutes.
Okay.
Thank you. See you soon.
Just checking for sound. Can everyone hear me? Excellent, thank you.
Bonjour, bonjour. Hello tout le monde. Hello, hello. So, Jérôme, tu es avec nous? Andrew, Emmanuel. Super. Désolé pour le petit délai. Sorry for the little delay. Is Nada with us as well? So, were you here during the... Oh, Nada. Sorry, I was like myself joining it. So, welcome everyone. I hope that you enjoyed the panel and the fireside chat that we have had a few minutes ago. So I'm joined with my wonderful colleague Nada from KPMG to welcome you for this for this breakout session on carbon accounting. So bonjour Nada, comment vas-tu? Where is Nada? Okay, I'm done. It's all right. It's all right. So as you saw, like the first section, we were on StreamYard. That is a platform for kind of like more a show. Here we are in a smaller room where we are lucky enough to be with Nada, who is going to welcome us. Hello, Nada. Ça va?
Oui, bonjour à tous. Désolée, j'avais des petits soucis techniques. Donc, je me présente, Nada, directrice de compte chez KPMG. Et j'ai le plaisir cette année de l'idée pour KPMG, notre collaboration avec l'équipe du Coopératon. Donc, on est vraiment très fiers de pouvoir participer à des initiatives comme celle-ci qui visent à réfléchir, échanger, solutionner des enjeux importants tels que le sujet d'aujourd'hui, donc l'innovation en finance carbone et plus largement le sujet des changements climatiques, du développement durable. C'est vraiment un enjeu qui est partagé entre KPMG et Desjardins puis au cœur de nos préoccupations. Lors de cette discussion, on aura le plaisir de mettre l'avant l'expertise KPMG, nos réflexions, et plus spécifiquement celle de l'équipe développement durable via notre directeur principal, Andrew Ross, que je remercie vraiment chaleureusement d'être avec nous. Et je tiens également à saluer Sander Jensen et Justine Carlon, qui sont également dans son équipe et présents dans les salles virtuelles. Donc, bonne discussion à tous. J'ai hâte d'entendre les propos de chacun.
Super, merci beaucoup Nada. Et vraiment un plaisir et un honneur de voir justement ces collaborations-là entre Desjardins, KPMG, avec le soutien de Montréal New Tech et ce travail-là pour justement amener la table de la discussion, mais aussi la table d'action. Très rapidement, avant d'introduire nos différents intervenants pour cette journée-là, I would like to just ask a little question. In the chat here, feel free to introduce yourself. Like the purpose of this kind of discussion is also to know who's with us. Donc, sentez-vous bien à l'aise de vous introduire. I'll have a little question before diving forward. You know, I'm based in Montreal. We have people all around the world. Like even like earlier on the chat, we have people from New York joining. We have people from NASA I'm sorry, I actually don't know where, but like in Houston, who are joining us as well. So we have people around the world. I just would like to validate. Is there someone in the room here who doesn't speak French at all? Est-ce qu'il y a quelqu'un dans la salle qui ne parle pas du tout anglais? Je vais le faire dans le bon ordre là et pas me mélanger. If there is anyone, yes, exactly. Please, bioresource engineering from McGill. My younger brother did that. So feel free to introduce yourself. So I guess Michael here doesn't speak French. So we'll keep it bilingual because we're here in Montreal, but like mainly I would assume we will dive into into English, my bad. Before introducing our guests here today, you know, we talked at the panel that now we dive deeper. Please, you know, we're going to talk about reverse pitch of the companies. They're going to talk about their challenges and how they see this as an opportunity. But we're not here in a regular pitch, bullshit, a startup presenting, blah, 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 blah. No, we're really here. And I would like everybody, it's all right, Nabila. So we'll keep it, I'll keep it at least in English, and we'll try to keep the flow proper. Feel free to introduce yourself in the chat. So the purpose of this kind of table is really to again, dive a bit deeper than the panel or the fireside that we had, to explore the challenges of the companies, as well as to talk about the actual solutions of the startups. So the startups here are not going to pitch, are not going to talk about revenue model, are not going to talk about their projection, etc., etc. They are going to talk about their solution, potentially even demo their solution publicly. Then, hopefully, we will see if there is a proper fit, and we'll have more private discussions to dive even further. So now I set the table for the table. And without further ado, really lucky and really happy, maybe to do a really quick roundtable. So starting maybe with our company's guests, because I guess it's a nice way to start. So again, thanks Desjardins and KPMG for having being with us today. So maybe on the Desjardins side, we'll do quickly, in a way, quick introduction, just your name and your role, and then we will dive into the challenges themselves. Jérôme?
Yeah, so hi everyone. So my name is Jérôme Petigny. I'm the practice leader for climate change at Desjardins, working in the sustainability and responsible finance team. I will let it at that for now.
Wonderful. Andrew?
Hi, everybody. My name is Andrew. I'm a senior manager at KPMG in our sustainability and climate change practice, leading it out of Montreal here.
Wonderful. Emmanuel?
My name is Emmanuel Tavernier. So I'm the founder of Oxia Initiative, and we're building a platform called Carboscope that's doing a carbon accounting for a private equity.
Wonderful. Merci beaucoup. And then we have Stephen. Do we have Stephen from Aquantics here? Yes.
Hello.
Yes. I have like just one screen, so like switching from one to the other. Stephen, enchanté, content de te revoir.
Salut. So I guess I'll go in English. Break my accent. Sorry about that. So yeah, Stephen Fortier, co-CEO of Aquantics, and glad to be here today.
Wonderful. Michael. Yes, he's here. Sorry.
Yep.
Yes, Michael.
Michael Stockard, CTO for Agrio. Great to be here today.
Wonderful. And as always, what we try to do is we believe that innovation is really at the crossroad of science, entrepreneurship, and enterprises. But fundamentally, innovation happens with science and research. So we're really lucky to have also Grant Clark, associate professor at. Sorry, go ahead, Grant. Sorry,
That's fine. You were doing a fine job. I'm an associate professor in the Department of Bioresource Engineering on the McDonald campus of McGill University.
Wonderful. Thank you very much, Grant. So, no, missing someone. Olivier from. Go ahead, Olivier.
Hi, everyone. I'm Olivier Demers-Dubé. I'm a senior advisor at Zone AgTech. We're an innovation zone dedicated to AgTech promotion of companies that are looking to solve climate change. So here to help and collaborate if necessary.
Wonderful. So thank you, everyone, for those quick introductions. We'll start. Let's get started. So maybe like starting with the Desjardins. This is the segment where we talk about the industry's challenge themselves. We'll try to keep it about 3 minutes if you can. And then we'll move to the startup and then the researcher. So Jérôme, the floor is yours. If you want to show some slides, of course, you're welcome to do so. If you just want to present the challenge that you're seeing, you can do the same thing.
Thank you, Ilias. I will try to keep it tight in 3 minutes. So basically, I won't present in detail Desjardins. You probably know a bit about us, but we are the largest financial cooperative in Canada, roughly 48,000 employees, and a very diversified product offering for any financial needs you might have. So we are also among the leading financial institutions in Canada. For instance, we updated our climate ambition in April to define our goal to become net zero emissions by 2040, with a focus on our loans and investments in 3 sectors, representing 75% of the GHG emissions in Canada. So that's to give you an idea of basically why it's important for us to care about climate change. And at a high level, when we look at why and how carbon financial innovations accelerate the adoption of net zero targets, we all need to make sure that greenhouse gas emissions are basically mitigated starting now to reach the goals of the Paris Agreement. So that's a fact, and we definitely need to move forward faster than we envisioned that before. Sorry for that. And financial institutions are a key player in the global economy to do that, to help move the needle forward. So the real question we have from the Desjardins perspective is, how do we make sure that we are just not playing with money here and have a real impact in the real economy? And that's a key challenge for us, which starts with very specific issues. So for instance, data. So how do we measure where we are? How much GHG emissions are we financing, basically? So when we are lending money, when we are investing in a company, we are at the end financing GHG emissions. So that's the harsh reality of our business. And we need to make sure that we are taking responsibility on that, which is not easy. And more importantly, we also need to make sure that we are supporting our members, our clients, in this much needed low carbon transition. So that's really where we are at for now. So as I mentioned, we are tackling this challenge in various ways. We have this long-term net zero target, and we have started to work on that, obviously. Without that, it doesn't make sense. And we are trying to, at first, set the stage, okay, where we are at for now. So regarding finance emission,
Is it me or is it Jérôme who's being challenged?
I think it's Jérôme, unfortunately.
Okay. No, it's all right. It's all right. It's all right. It's all right. So, Jérôme, Andrew, can you hear me, Nada?
Yeah,
okay.
I hear you.
Okay. So it's Jérôme's side. Well, that's the pleasures of being in this kind of remote work life. So it's all good. Jérôme, can we hear? Can you?
I can hear you. Can you hear me?
Yeah. So sorry, like
Okay.
the last maybe 20 seconds were cut off. You kind of
Okay.
like. I don't know
So
if you want
basically,
to. Yeah, go ahead.
I can recap the last 20 seconds in 10. So basically, we're working on tackling this large issue in various ways. So trying to measure our carbon accounting, our GHG emissions, the ones that we are financing, and not only the ones that we are emitting from our operations. We have a large green offering, so that's good. But we need to work with many industry sectors, including small and medium enterprises. And that's where, for instance, we have like a critical need of data and ways to support, for instance, sectors such as the agricultural sector. It's one of our largest part of the loan book. So definitely we have an interest. It's key for us for various reasons, one of them being historical. And so we will need to find ways to work better with farmers and more broadly the agricultural sector and see basically where farms and agriculture and this sector is right now and how it can move forward into a lower emission economy. Right, I will cut that.
Very much. Thank you. Andrew, your turn, sir.
Okay, great. Thanks, Ilias. So I just wanted to give you guys a brief description of sort of KPMG, our sustainability services, what we're doing, and then I can get a little bit more into the challenge. So I've been with the team at KPMG for the last 6 months or so, and been doing sustainability and climate change consulting for about 9 years. And my background and training is, I would say, very focused on the environment side and very specifically on climate change. So most of the work that I'm doing with my clients is focused on developing their climate change strategies, doing climate risk assessments for them, even quantifying, their carbon footprints, setting reduction targets and net zero strategies. Essentially everything we're talking about today. So I'm helping our clients through that process. And at KPMG, our sort of sustainability services team is very much a national team. So we have approximately 35 sustainability professionals across Canada. And as consultants, we're constantly trying to find new innovative ways to help our clients, specifically in ESG strategy, in climate change, and integrate ESG factors all throughout their business. And I think that some of the challenges that we see is really this putting numbers to things, often things that are typically or traditionally not as tangible. And so helping them report these kinds of ESG impacts, aligning them with standards and frameworks is definitely one of those challenges. And also as an audit firm, we provide sustainability assurance for our clients. And so that data that goes into calculating the things that Jérôme was talking about needs to stand the test of an audit. It needs to be credible, has to be transparent. And so that's another layer of complexity right there that our clients face as well. So I think just from a climate change perspective, it's very clear that it's become single-handedly sort of the #1 concern, especially for our clients. And I think it's because they understand now that climate risk equals financial risk. And as a result, our clients need more of our support to better understand, identify, and assess their climate risk exposure, and also to quantify their carbon impacts. And I think traditionally this was a maybe more an easier exercise. Actually, it was very operationally driven. Corporate carbon footprints were sort of the typical way to report on your performance. But nowadays, investors and stakeholders in general, I think they want a lot more. What they want actually is a full value chain approach to this problem. And so financial service firms like Desjardins actually have a very difficult task on their hands. And what I mean by that is when you think about carbon emissions outside of the operational footprint, we're talking about scope 3 emissions or financed emissions. And I think these emissions are all associated with the investments, with the banks, financing activities, pension funds, the asset managers. You think about all these different financial institutions and the different mechanisms that they have in place. Essentially, it's the downstream emissions of their investments, and it's all of the emissions of the portfolio companies. So try to imagine the complexity of trying to calculate carbon emissions for every single investment, every loan, every bond, asset class. It gets very difficult very quickly. So the availability and the quality of that data is a significant challenge for financial service firms and companies in general. And most of that data, as Jérôme mentioned, is either private or it's in the form that requires a lot of estimation or gap filling. So I think banks and institutional investors need to, if they want to set realistic carbon reduction targets, they need to understand what their true value chain or financed emissions impact is. And many leading institutions have committed to net zero targets, but they're struggling with measuring and reducing their financed emissions. So it's one thing to set a target, but it's another thing to actually get there. So there's been a few frameworks, some standards have recently been developed. Most of them are high level, some are sector specific. And I think in general, there's a limited amount of tools available and a lack of standardized metrics to basically guide companies to collect and consolidate and quantify sort of these more extended climate footprints. And so as a KPMG consultant, my clients are asking very pointed questions about what are the toolkits out there that I could use to measure my climate risk exposure? How do I measure my financed emissions? How do I solve the data challenge? And how do I automate climate reporting? Can you identify carbon reduction opportunities for my investment portfolio? And then the bigger question is, what targets should I be setting? And how does that contribute to my net zero commitment? So very curious to hear from the startups today. I think an innovation is really going to be driven by something that's digitally enabled, that can be fully integrated in the traditional sort of investment and financing cycle.
Absolutely. Thank you very, very much. There is a lot of opportunities in all that has been said, whether from actually tracking those data to actually like using it. And you talked about standards, and there is a lot of sides or angles to tackle this problem. And I see some of our startups. So some of our startups who are like seeing this and being like, this is my turn, this is my part. So anyway, without further ado, I think we have, so we will jump into the second part here. We have like the part for the Q&A and to dive deeper. Stephen, are you comfortable to start on your end?
Yeah, for sure.
Always ready. Stephen is like, I'm born ready. So yeah, so this is the second part where actually the startups are presenting their potential solutions. So go ahead, Stephen, it's on your,
yeah,
do you want to
so
share your screen? Pardon?
Yeah, the option for sharing screen right now is blanked. I don't know.
2, 4, 6, 8, 9. Oh, okay, Nada, I'm going to say something that will be a bit annoying. Do you mind if I, because I can leave the screen. I can leave myself, I think. If I leave the screen, attends, comment je peux sortir? Okay.
Le bouton quitter en haut à droite, c'est contre-intuitif parce qu'on pense qu'on sort, mais on sort notre partage d'écran. Ouais.
Effectivement. Donc, je vais sortir while Stephen, I can leave for now. So it will allow you, because the screen limit is 9 and we're already 9, so plus 1 screen. Go ahead.
Okay.
You have 3 minutes, Steven. Go ahead.
Okay, so just to make sure you can see my screen right now.
You're good.
Okay, all right. So quickly again, so Steven Fortier, co-CEO of Aquantic. So what we do essentially is that we quantify the impact of climate change, mainly for financial institutions. So as Ilias said, the goal of today really is to go a bit more in depth about what we do and how we tackle this challenge, and show a bit under the hood so you guys can understand what we do. So quickly, just on climate change in general, climate change could be summarized super quickly on the production of more CO2 and other gases. And what this does, of course, is that it has multiple climate effects, like the temperature rises because of the sun being captured, precipitation patterns changes, humidity, and so on. So what does this essentially do? It has two main different impacts. The first one is on the physical risk side of things, and the second one is on the transition risks. So on the physical risks, of course, the fact that the climate will change makes some natural disaster more frequent, more damaged, and we do quantify that. Also, the different climate change, let's say in temperature, does affect a lot of what we do. So for example, the different crops, with cotton production being more into desertification area, workers' productivity changing when heat is too high, cattle effect, and so on. On the second side, it's the transition risks. So the way we tackle this problem is mainly solving on two issues. So we go on the carbon prices, so estimating what will be the impact of different climate scenarios on the carbon prices, and also on the energy prices, because the energy transition will change. So let's say we'll go from more, in one scenario, from more oil and gas sources will decline and production will be limited. So we'll go with more transition energy like solar and wind and so on. So this is just quickly an overview of the different risks that we do provide and that we do quantify. So a lot of them are in natural disaster, some chronic risks, a lot also in water, where we started as a startup. And more we go towards the transition risks, really quantifying carbon energy around the world. So super quickly, how we do that, what's our secret sauce? So we look at hundreds of thousands of satellite imagery. We detect events. We couple that with some sensors around the world to go with what were the conditions of those events, with some news. We do some simulation out of all of that to finish with some scenarios of the future. So depending on where we go over different scenarios, we'll do different prediction of those risks. We do so along with most of the international standards. And finally, I just wanted to go over a few of our main things that are important for us. So as Andrew mentioned from KPMG, precision and standardized results in dollars is something that is really important for us. So we want to quantify those risks so that they can be used into pretty much any algorithms of the financial institutions that we work with. Something really important also for us is to make sure that the data we give is really visual, insight, and explainable. So that's why we got this platform that allows you to dig in and really understand the root causes of all those risks. There's some options, well, pretty much everywhere, to export detailed reports on those risks. And finally, the 2 points, the coverage that we get, everything we do it globally all around the world. We cover most assets. So we got a database of more than 80,000 public and private corporations. We do cover a lot of different funds, bonds, and also started recently on real estate and supply chain more in general. And last point, of course, cybersecurity is super important for us because we are in innovation. So that's it.
Thank you very much. I was waiting for you to cut the screen. I wasn't able to moderate, so you went a bit further. It's all right if we are between 3 and 4 minutes. All right. I think it's important to take the time and the space for everyone to understand what's going on, and as well as to seize this opportunity for that. So merci beaucoup, Steven, for your thorough presentation. We will move to the next one. I don't know, Michael, if you need slides as well. Of course, like it's all good. So you want
I was going to share some slides. I'm sorry, I need to kick you out.
Ilias, Ilias, tu dois modérer. Moi, je vais te laisser ma place. Il n'y a aucun problème.
Oh non, t'en fais pas. Là,
oui.
Pas...
Ben, je m'en vais de toute façon. Je reviens.
OK, bon. OK, d'accord. Merci. Par ailleurs, j'aurais aimé finir avec Olivier tout à l'heure, là, mais Olivier fait partie de la zone AgTech, puis ce sont nos partenaires, puis on collabore ensemble. Pour les gens qui ne connaissent pas les zones d'innovation en AgTech, on aura l'occasion d'en parler là, mais là, il est parti, mais je suis persuadé qu'on va avoir l'occasion de collaborer plus en profondeur pour justement répondre à ces enjeux-là de changement climatique et de net zéro. Donc, so, Michael, your turn. If you can make it in 3 to 4 minutes, that would be wonderful.
Great. So I'm with Agrio, the CTO of Agrio, and a couple of things I wanted to go over. So with our solution, this goes through what's really the challenge. And the challenge is there's a gap between the farmer's needs and the financial institution's ability to provide credit to the farmer. Because it's difficult for the banks, environmental service, and insurance companies to effectively calculate credit risk. And there are many variables like weather, yield, seasonality, and crop price. Today, most financial institutions focus on assessing the risk based on the individual or the farmer's personal credit, but they give little attention to the land and the property itself. So Agrio, so what do? We help financial services, the industry, better and more reliably with risk intelligence, help financial institutions to give credit and insurance to farmers, leveraging our software as a service solution. So the value, our clients really are the banks, environmental services, and insurance companies, including trade financiers. And we provide them a quick, remote, and efficient risk intelligence that allows them to reduce the customer acquisition cost by 5x. Also, we help them with real-time crop monitoring, fraud detection, and all aspects of sustainable lending. Additionally, we offer a solution around carbon credits, green bonds that helps the financial institutions align with the UN sustainability goals. And all of this provides a better experience for the farmers. The Agrio engine, as you can see up there now, so this is how we solve the problem. So once we onboard a customer, say it's a bank or an insurance company, and their customers, which are the farmers input data into the lending interface of the bank, and we use that data in our proprietary risk algorithm we call the CIOS engine. And that's really our secret sauce to enrich 520 plus data points, which include environmental, agronomic data points, satellite imageries, reflective radiation, global soil maps, and use artificial intelligence for the risk modeling. We also offer smart contracts, near real-time monitoring on the crop, and fraud detection, and even things like the climate-paced bonds. The IP is really what differentiates us, is what it's difficult to replicate, and it took a considerable amount of scientific research to develop. And the last thing I want to go through is the journey map. So this just gives you a view of how do we support carbon credits or even green bonds. So once the farmer applies for carbon credits by outlining the portion of their property that's forest, Agrio analyzes things like forest uniformity, the history over the past 20 years for the origination time period, and then post-funding of the credits or the proceeds of the green bond, Agrio monitors the forest and detects fraud throughout the life of the contract. So that's really what I wanted to go through and share with everyone today.
Wonderful. Thank you very, very much. I'm going to highlight the fact that you actually stayed in 3 minutes. So thank you very much, Michael.
Oh.
So last but not least, Emmanuel from Oxia.
Hi. Just sharing my screen. Thanks. Okay, so I have done this presentation in French, so maybe I'm going to switch in French, everyone, if you don't mind. If you have any question, I can answer in English. So, Oxia Initiative, so like, I'm not going to come, je vais pas revenir sur le réchauffement climatique, mais la chose la plus importante, c'est vraiment qu'il y ait une collaboration nécessaire pour pouvoir lutter contre le changement climatique. Alors, quand je parle de collaboration, pourquoi on a développé Oxia Initiative et pourquoi on a développé la plateforme Carboscope, c'est qu'il faut absolument qu'il y ait une collaboration entre les investis, ce que j'appelle les entrepreneurs, les investisseurs, donc vous, Desjardins, et les consultants ou d'autres parties prenantes comme le gouvernement. Et il faut qu'il y ait une continuité dans cette data-là, dans la data. Et donc, du coup, c'est ce qu'on propose chez Oxia Initiative. Basiquement, on veut développer une plateforme qui permet de connaître l'impact réel du carbone. On ne veut plus baser notre carbon footprint basé sur des datas qui ne sont pas cohérentes avec l'investissement dans le portefeuille. On veut collecter la data. Alors, pourquoi la data, pourquoi le carbon footprint d'un portefeuille, par exemple en private equity, où il y a 120 entreprises, pourquoi c'est impossible de faire chacun des bilans carbone des investissements? Pour l'instant, c'est beaucoup trop cher et c'est pas standardisé. Donc, nous, on apporte une solution pour comme réduire les coûts et pouvoir standardiser la mesure carbone. Pour pouvoir, donc, qu'est-ce qu'on a développé on a développé Carboscope. La première étape, c'est on a développé un module qu'on appelle le CAS, Carbon Accounting System. Ça calcule l'empreinte carbone automatiquement de chaque investissement. Ensuite, on a développé un nouveau module qui s'appelle le Positive Carbon Impact. Pourquoi? Parce qu'on a besoin de quantifier les émissions de gaz à effet de serre évitées par des solutions en clean tech, des entreprises qui ont des solutions en clean tech. Donc, ces deux modules qui ont été développés, ils ont été développés sous la norme GHG protocole et sous la norme ISO. Donc, à chaque fois qu'un investissement passe par un CAS ou par un PCIS, il va avoir son rapport de norme ISO ou de norme GHG protocole. Et ensuite, on peut du coup automatiquement calculer l'entièreté du portefeuille avec chacun des investissements. Et donc, du coup, à l'arrivée, à faire un carbon footprint du portefeuille avec un élagage des doubles comptages, bien évidemment. Et donc, du coup, comment on fait? C'est simple, on a développé 4 étapes avec une première étape, un scope prédéfini. Pourquoi le scope prédéfini est fait? C'est parce qu'on utilise le scope 3 avec une approche sectorielle par secteur d'activité. Ensuite, on envoie des questionnaires intelligents, on collecte la data, ça rentre dans notre algorithme et la livraison d'un rapport par entreprise qui est envoyé au fonds d'investisseur, au directeur de portefeuille et à l'entreprise. Ensuite, on peut du coup automatiser l'ensemble du processus à l'ensemble du portefeuille. Donc, forcément, au jour d'aujourd'hui, on a développé la plateforme. Elle est fonctionnelle. Elle est sortie il y a une semaine. Et au jour d'aujourd'hui, avec cette plateforme fonctionnelle, on arrive à sortir un rapport de gaz à effet de serre en moins d'un mois. Et un rapport, que ça soit un rapport d'émissions de gaz émises ou évitées, les deux se font en moins d'un mois. En général, en 2 semaines, avec la collecte de data de l'entreprise. Donc, bien sûr, évidemment, moi, j'ai vraiment la stricte norme de la GHG protocole ou de la norme ISO. Ça, c'est vraiment crucial pour nous. Pourquoi? Parce qu'on a besoin d'être beaucoup plus transparent et d'avoir de la continuité dans la data. Donc, la norme GHG protocole ou la norme ISO, c'est la base du système. Ensuite, on pourra très bien les envoyer vers du CDP, du TCFD, etc. Ça, c'est très, très malléable. Mais il faut quand même comprendre la base du système, c'est-à-dire la collecte de data granulaire chez chaque investissement, que l'on puisse collecter, remonter l'information jusqu'à nos investisseurs. Et bien sûr, si cette collecte de data est collectée, il faut la partager. Donc, il faut envoyer le rapport au fonds d'investissement, mais aussi le rapport à l'entreprise, parce que l'entreprise, elle va pouvoir, elle, mettre en place des stratégies de réduction de gaz à effet de serre. Et donc, on a une data qui est commune entre toutes les parties prenantes. Et quand j'entends parties prenantes, c'est entrepreneurs, investisseurs et gouvernement. Et donc, du coup, on automatise complètement la mesure carbone. Et donc, du coup, l'argent arrête d'aller à la mesure carbone, mais va permettre à des consultants comme Andrew de passer à des stratégies de réduction de gaz à effet de serre. Et ça, c'est vraiment important de automatiser cette mesure carbone, de la rendre la moins coûteuse possible, de standardiser nos développements pour pouvoir, de standardiser notre processus de quantification de gaz à effet de serre pour pouvoir passer à l'action beaucoup plus rapidement et évidemment avoir tous la même data commune pour pouvoir avoir un langage commun de GES. Voilà, donc j'ai fini. If you have any question, we'll be more happy to answer.
Super. Merci beaucoup, Emmanuel. Thank you very much, Emmanuel. So now that was like on the startup part. Before moving into the deep dive, as we call, where the companies will be able to ask questions to the startups and vice versa. The point is not, and again, like we are not in a pitch, reverse pitch, and dragon or whatever. The point here is to have a discussion. So we will have a discussion between the startups and the companies where we will be able to exchange. But before moving to that, I think, as we said earlier, and a lot of all this is based on science, and it's science-driven innovation. And we're lucky to have Grant with us here. So this is the part 3 of this breakout session and how we design it in such a field. So Grant, thank you very much for accepting to be with us today.
It's a pleasure, Ilias. Yeah.
So you have some slides, or
if I may, I would like to do that. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. So you can take a few minutes on that. I will. Yeah, okay. Olivier is like, I'm here. Okay, go ahead. Share your screen. Merci, Olivier. So that gives time also for the companies and the startups to cool down after this exchange, to listen to that before diving deeper. So merci beaucoup, Grant, again, for being here.
My pleasure. So as I mentioned, I'm faculty at McGill University on the McDonald campus, which is on the west end of the island of Montreal. So the main campus, which many people are familiar with, is in the downtown. McGill's larger and greener campus is on the very west end of the island on the way to Toronto. So we have about 500 hectares of green infrastructure, including an operational research farm and an arboretum there. So there's an air shot of the campus there. So the big message of my presentation, and of course, I'm working in applied research and engineering. So I'm trying to generate the data and understand the systems that all of these AI tools and databases are built upon. So the concept is that a city is part of a larger ecosystem. And as you know, we're an urban planet now. Most of us live in cities and the proportion is increasing. There are material and energy resources flowing through that ecosystem continually. And associated with that, of course, carbon and carbon emissions and other greenhouse gases are implicated. So we need to manage those resource flows in order to sustain a healthy ecosystem, ourselves included in that ecosystem. And biological processes help us to do that. So bioresource engineering is working at the interface of biological and technological endeavors. So we're, of course, familiar with the idea of a linear economy, and this applies as much to food production and consumption and the associated carbon flows as it does to anything else. So our current system is based primarily on the industrial model of agriculture and food consumption, where we're producing on the farm using raw materials, carbon, nitrogen, phosphorus, and potassium. We have some leakages into the environment. And the harvested portion of our crops, whether it's from agriculture, forestry, or other biologically based industries, is concentrated in the urban centers where most of us live, where that biological material is then processed and consumed, and then we're faced with a disposal problem. So conventionally, we bury, incinerate, or dump that waste organic material into water. What we're trying to do in our group is figure out a way to, or figure out strategies for circularizing the flow of organic materials. So the conventional flow, the linear economy of carbon, the way it operates in much of the world now, is super effective at producing large quantities of biomass, which is then harvested, concentrated, consumed, and then disposed. So the circular, and of course, there are environmental consequences to this. We are all familiar with the idea of algal blooms. And of course, global warming is also a consequence of our current agricultural and food economy. Depending on how you slice the numbers, agriculture and associated industries are responsible for more than 20% of global greenhouse gas emissions. Some would estimate that to be much larger if they consider land use impacts on greenhouse gas emissions. So the contrary, or the desirable model that we're working toward, is to circularize the flows of these carbon materials and the associated nutrients. The nutrients are an important part of this because the more we can recycle the nutrients in the organic material back to agricultural land, the fewer synthetic fertilizers we need to manufacture and transport. And that is a substantial savings in greenhouse gas production. So what we would like to do then is to take our waste organics, including food waste, yard waste, even the organic fraction of municipal solid waste, and biosolids from wastewater treatment, after all of these organic resources have gone through the urban system, and retool the municipal waste management's infrastructure to instead be a resource recovery infrastructure, so that all of those materials through, for instance, composting and anaerobic digestion can be reapplied to agricultural land. And circularizing the economy that way, of course, is going to renew our soils. It is going to reduce our greenhouse gases, and it is going to reduce other forms of resource consumption, including the extraction of mineral fertilizers. So there are pros and cons associated with this circularization of the organic economy. We are going to be sequestering soil organic matter, which is one way of sequestering carbon, of course, and keeping that from being released into the atmosphere. And the plants are constantly assimilating carbon through photosynthesis. So if we can retain and then assimilate that carbon, those carbon molecules back into the soil, that's a net benefit to society. As far as the cons go, of course, nothing is a silver bullet. So there are technological problems that need to be dealt with. And one that is front of mind for many people is the fact that as materials flow through that organic economy, they're going to be contaminated, for instance, with metals, potentially with pathogens, pharmaceuticals, antibiotics, and microplastics. How do we deal with those? We don't want those to return in a harmful way to our agricultural soils or potentially contaminate our food chain. So my group has been thinking about these problems, and we're also considering the quality and quantity of data that we have in order to evaluate these systems. If we cannot measure, then we cannot control or optimize the systems for whatever objectives we might have in mind. So we need those quality data about the greenhouse gas emissions from every aspect of this circular economy. And we need to make sure that the data are credible. And so that's our work as a research group. So now how does this tie in with the financial aspect? Well, of course, cities, municipal organizations look at this as a waste disposal problem, and they need to minimize their costs. On the other side of this, however, we have the farmers and agricultural organizations who are receiving those organic products. They have to be shown that this is going to be profitable to them. So increased agronomic yield is one way that can be done, but also there needs to be an instrument which will compensate or reward those agricultural producers for sequestering carbon in the soil. And that's the role of the financial institutions in cooperation with the government to build that kind of financial infrastructure to reward our agricultural producers for engaging in this remediation effort and trying to help us in the circularization of the economy with the end goal of reducing our emissions not to net zero, but to net negative, because that is actually where we need to go in order to try and deal with the damage that we've been doing to our atmosphere. So net negative is really the end goal here. So thank you for indulging me. And I'd be happy to engage in the conversation.
Thank you very, very much. Thank you so much. So now we're diving into the part where it's the deep dive and the fireside chat. So I don't know if whether KPMG or Desjardins have questions for the startups or on the research side. This is more like a deep dive among ourselves regarding the presentation that you have seen, and we can and vice versa. So it goes back and forth between the startups and the companies and researcher. Maybe Jérôme or Andrew, do you want to start? Have a question for Emmanuel, Michael, or Stephen, or Grant?
It's difficult to come up with a, I guess, good question for the 3 minutes that you guys had. I think all three presentations were quite interesting. I definitely see, I mean, I have a question, I guess, with respect to Oxia. And it sounds like the premise of your, I guess, software solution is to send out surveys and collect that data. I just want to understand, what is the data you are collecting, and are you seeing any challenges in terms of like the quality and consistency of that data?
Okay. So the quality of the data, I'm going to answer to this part of the question after, but the first question is we're sending a survey to the companies that you are there is in an investment portfolio, and basically what kind of survey we're collecting is very granular data, and is based on the operational activity of each company. And so we have developed the sectoral approach to not bother too much with too much question, one company that is not useful to ask this question in a term of GHG, significant emission on GHG. So we have developed all the survey based on each sector to collect the minimum of the data, but bring the scope 3 enough data to bring the significant emission by sector. And so we are basically aligned on the new norms ISO, basically. So of course we're doing scope 1 and 2, the entire one, but we're doing scope 3 with a significant emission on the sectoral approach. So now with this granular data, we never collected in a mass this granular data. So especially for small and medium company. So that's my goal is at the end of the day, we need to collect this granular data because we need to reduce the GHG emission based on a scope 3. So you're not going to reduce a scope 1 and 2 on a manufacturing company, right? You're just going to work, and all the circular economy is based on a scope 3. So we need to work on this with a real economy. So that is the survey. So now is a sharing survey inside the company, so that more than one person can answer to the survey, and it's taking 2 weeks, approximately 2 weeks for the company to answer all the survey and to send it to us. So then as soon as we have the data, us is taking 2-3 days to just figure out if all the algorithm is right and send in a report. So yeah, with this methodology, we're creating 2 new data. The first data is the raw data that we collected from the company, operational activities. And the second data is we're creating the GHG emission based on a scope 3 for a small and medium company. So that is a new on the market. And we want to, it's not new because you already do it and as a consultant, but what is new is we're gathering in a mass. So that we can create it then we can have to be a provider of the data for a small and medium company. So did I answer to your question?
Yeah.
Perfect. Thank you.
Okay. So again, this is just setting the table for the potential private meetings afterwards. But I think the answer was fairly thorough. Thanks, Andrew, for your question. No, it's all right. Now the reality is that we're limited in time. But again, we are diving deeper more than the panel. But at the same time, this is more the public setting, and we are all aiming to have a private setting afterwards. So merci Emmanuel pour la profondeur de la réponse. Grant has a very interesting question. I will unfortunately not grant you this question because it will dive deeper with Emmanuel. But this is a very interesting question on what are the incentives? And speaking of incentives, there may be some interesting questions as well for either from the startups or even yourself, Grant, towards KPMG and Desjardins, or from Jérôme towards the startup. So I don't know, Jérôme, if you have a question, maybe for Aquantix or Agrio here.
Sorry for that. Yeah, so I have actually one question, and it's more about the how do we operationalize this risk assessment that you are offering in different ways into our processes. And that's really key here because, as I think it was Andrew mentioned, it's pretty hard at this stage to basically do an ad hoc assessment for each company, and we need to integrate in a transparent way those risk assessments related to climate risks into our credit risk assessments and etc. So this is where I'm sometimes struggling to explain to our teams, okay, you could use for instance Aquantix or Agrio for this or that portfolio, And that would lead you an ability to differentiate or to price differently your product, depending on the risks that you are seeing. And so I definitely see the benefits, but I'm still unsure about how to do it properly from the inside. So maybe if you have a few questions, and just as a heads up, I will unfortunately need to log off after you answer. So thank you.
Yeah, I mean, I can go through from an Agreo perspective. One of the things we do to integrate with the environmental services companies or even on trade finance, we basically, they send us geo coordinates for the plot or the property. And then we run through our process, which basically uses our AI and algorithms to do the data science and produce the reporting. And then we send that information back to the user, and we do it either via our user interface. So we have our own user interface, or there's some banks and insurance company that prefer to use their own, and they just integrate with us via the API. So that's kind of the way you operationalize it, say at the bank, is just to be able to send that data, what's the contract terms for the loan, the end, start and end dates, and then we send the reports back. And after that, we do fraud detection. So every week, we gather new data points from around the world. It's all remote. And then we flag anything for fraud, whether it's the farmer said they were going to plant soybean, harvest has or not harvest, but planting has started. We're a month into it, and there's no soybean on the field. So we immediately can send that information to the financial institution to follow up with the farmer, and then do other things like make sure they're doing no-till farming, which also positively affects the environment. So we can tell those things via the various parts of imageries that we have access to.
Yeah, maybe you can go context also.
Vas-y, Steven. Vas-y, Steven, je m'excuse. No, your turn. I apologize.
No, for sure. So we do something similar, essentially. So for your question, how can the data be used and integrated? Essentially, it all starts usually by the client asking for a specific asset. So they will ask for risk information for funds, for corporations, for real estate, anything. So they will give us a list of those assets, either just by name or by address. And after that, what we do is we'll do the analysis of each one of those risks that they're interested in, and we will aggregate that information for them, either at the corporate level, at a fund level, at a geographical level. So we'll do a lot of aggregation of risk informations. And the way that we can provide those aggregations, either by API that is really used, or the platform directly. And the last option is directly with CSVs that we can export to give the clients directly the raw data of their different risks. And just a little thing that's pretty interesting that we really believe in is all the risks that we provide, we give them into what we call expected losses. So we multiply the probability of an event. So let's say, what's the probability of having a flood at this company, at this site of a company? And what will be the losses if that flood happens? And once we multiply those two, we can say that we expect a certain amount of losses in the next 5 years for floods for that corporation. So that's the way we approach the problem, really, by quantifying some dollar losses that would happen to that site if we talk about flood, for example.
Okay. Thank you, Steve. Thank you, Michael. This is a discussion. So like now, this is the part where, unfortunately, Jérôme seems to have to go. We should have stayed on time. So Jérôme, just before you leave, one sec. For the startups who may find this kind of like, I don't know how to say it, but like cut short. Yes, cut short. We're waiting for that. Like, again, we started with the panel. Now we have the public setting, and then we have the private setting. So don't feel that like we're cutting you short. The purpose here is really like to get to know each other, to build this kind of relationship, and to dive deeper afterwards. So don't feel like we're cutting you short. I apologize. I wish, honestly, that this just table would be the whole day, or like at least like a good 1 hour and a half. And then we have real breakouts where physically we move around. We have one-on-one discussions. We're trying our best in the circumstances we're living. But the purpose is really to foster more collaboration. We're going to get back to you with actual actionable items. So thank you very much, Jérôme. Emmanuel, I know you wanted to ask a question. Maybe you can ask it. Jérôme will leave. but I think he has a meeting. So that's the reality of being in the middle of many things.
Yeah, I unfortunately need to go, but thanks all, a very good discussion, and let's catch up later, Emmanuel, for sure.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye-bye. Andrew, Andrew, can you stay with us a bit longer?
Yeah.
Okay. So, and after that, like we will do a little round maybe of questions from the startups to KPMG or to myself. It's fine. And then I would like to introduce Olivier as well, like that he was observing a little bit like this flow. And I would like to have his point of view on the subject, as well as he's part of Zonac Tech, who's also a supporter of this creative collision. So that's kind of like how I would like us to wrap it up. But as I said, this is a public part. This is just getting started. So now it's on the startup or grant side, if you have a question for the startup or the companies as well. So the floor is yours, ladies and gentlemen. I know we had questions in the chat, so depending how you feel, I will ask the questions that are in the chat. So
I have a question for Grant. For McGill, one of the things I'd be interested in is if you're with what you're doing and kind of closing the whole ecosystem, if you're also thinking of kind of providing training to various points of the ecosystem on things they can do to further decrease carbon emissions. Like an example I always give is no-till farming, which some farmers just don't know how to do it.
Well, our group wouldn't be set up to do training. Or extension, I think maybe is kind of what you're applying, eh? What we would do is we would identify places where the technology can be improved or technologies might be implemented to try and reduce emissions or increase sequestration. We train, there are programs where we can train our students and then they can take that knowledge into industry, for instance, but we don't have an active extension service at McGill.
Okay, thank you.
I can answer to the question to Grant. Okay, great. So basically we're doing like a carbon accounting systems, and like that it can be like used by any kind of company or any kind of like a consultant doing the carbon accounting of one company. At the end of the day, like everyone can use that. But how are we gonna to introduce the market and how are we gonna to like force the company to do the carbon accounting? We work with a private equity. That is a key the key entrance for us to use the platform, because at the end of the day, the director of a portfolio just forced the company to do the carbon footprint. So that's why like we enter in the market. But in France, we're going to open office in France this year. And in France, like carbon accounting, I mean, it's already done like for the 10 years ago. So like I don't have to convince the company to like the good useful of doing a carbon accounting, because at the end of the day, like first we need to measure, then we need to reduce. So like that is like the sensibilization in France is already done. So I don't need to like convince them that you need to do the carbon accounting. So that's why we're going to open an office like in France, work with a private equity here, and like open an office in France to work with a private equity or any kind of company want to do the carbon accounting. Did I answer to your question?
I think so, but are the data from the companies, those are proprietary data, or are they public when they do that accounting?
No, it's a private data. It's basically a lot of data based on the accounting system. All the operational activities goes to accounting system. So like we collect this data and we ask like a question like that is easy for them to understand. So it's very private data, real data on that.
So I think Grant, Emmanuel, Andrew will have like a little discussion down the road. No, it's all good. It's all good. I think like diving even further is always an interesting part. Stephen, Michael, do you have maybe a question for Andrew or Nada? Well, Nada, but maybe for Andrew or vice versa. Maybe a last question. I'll try to get Justine on screen, but it seems that it's being challenged here.
Yeah, I might have a question for Andrew. It's something a bit general and maybe vague, but I'm wondering, what are the different solutions that you guys work with right now, just regarding climate in general? Is there something specific that you use? Is it internal or any kind of other solutions?
That's a good question. We have our own sort of proprietary climate IQ tool that's basically being piloted at the moment from the Netherlands and the UK office. It's a very similar, I think, tool to the one you've kind of built in the sense it's supposed to do climate risk assessments using different swarming scenarios and all of that. And so, I think every company is trying to come up with these sorts of black box tools. I haven't had a chance to apply it yet. I think what my clients are asking from a Canadian context is more regional sort of higher resolution kind of information and assessments. So I think from a Canadian standpoint, that's where we are looking to potentially partner or get access to that kind of data to then incorporate into our sort of framework that we used for climate risk assessments and ultimately TCFD reporting.
Justine, can you join us on screen or still having an issue on it? Can you share your screen? Okay, it seems that it's not working. Okay, it's all right. Well, we're trying. I was trying, so sometimes it doesn't work. Emmanuel, you had a question for Andrew? So we're putting Andrew on a hot seat, but Andrew, by the way, like not everybody is knowing exactly the flow. Like usually in this kind of setting, you have like the company and then the company is asking the questions for the startups. We kind of like try to make this like a conversation, so it goes both ways, but feel free and be comfortable to say, this is for public setting, this is for private setting, or this is something I'm not comfortable answering. We are really like trying to create this environment where we can be true to each other and not like, so go ahead, Emmanuel.
Thank you. So I have a question for you, Andrew. So you say like you're doing a carbon footprint of like your client, and like I want to like ask you like how many company in terms of percentage like you're doing with a scope 3, and like what like and like how, because what you're doing after is like a strategy to reduce. So like it's so much easier to reduce on the scope 3. But like my question is first is like how many company you're doing with a scope 3 in your portfolio of KPMG, and like what kind of scope 3 are you like doing it? Like how you select your scope 3?
We definitely are doing scope 3 emissions quantification. It's, I would say, the only one that nowadays that our clients ask for. Before it was very much scope 1 and 2. Now they know how to do that on their own. So where they need help is definitely scope 3. Where we see, I guess, the categories, the ones that are most common, definitely supply chain, number one, so products and services, and obviously upstream transport and distribution. And then from a financial services side of things, it's very much the downstream scope 3 investments, so the financed emissions. So we're getting a lot of requests for proposals on financed emissions. But what we're seeing is that it's not just the quantification, it's a lot of engagement. What they need is a consultant to come in and provide that engagement role with the portfolio companies, with their subsidiaries, to either collect data or share best practices of reducing emissions, renewable energy opportunities, things like that. And then what we'll also do is we try to package a lot of that into more of an overarching sort of framework or strategy that aligns with their net zero kind of commitment. So that's the discourse that we're having now with our clients. It's a lot more strategic, and it's a lot more, I would say, down the chain and not, not so much their own specific operations. And I think, like I said, it's the visibility that they have is very much lacking. They don't have a lot of information. And when it's a private equity side, that's where it gets very difficult.
So, Emmanuel, I think the answer was really interesting. I do think that we're going to have that on a private setting. So thank you very much, Andrew, for also like opening up. I think this is like really part of the purpose of these conversations. Thanks, Stephen, Michael as well for your questions, and definitely looking for a more private setting to dive even further in these kind of conversations. I think Grant and Emmanuel has also to have a conversation. I think Michael, Emmanuel, and Grant on that part. We had two questions. I still would like us, if anyone needs to go, like it was supposed to be 3:15. It's 3:36. I apologize, just like you were too interesting. So that's your fault, not my fault. Jokes aside, we have 2 questions. I would love to see if anyone can answer them. Michael Dennis, are carbon offsets verification and monetization part of the picture, investments with growth potentials, as well as Justine Carlon, who had a hard time as well. So how do you keep the data? And it's written in the chat. I feel like I'm just repeating myself, but how do you keep the data up to date according to the occurrence of natural events, change in regulation, and emerging risks? That question is for whom? I don't know if Justine is still here.
Justine's, I can go through that, from our perspective at Agrio. So what we do to kind of keep up with all the natural events is we track the data for the properties for the past 20 years. So we detect fire spots, deforestation, drought events, soil moisture, throughout the world. So as the world changes, we're able to show those changes for a specific plot of land anywhere in the world. So that's kind of how we do it.
Wonderful. And maybe regarding the question of Michael, if either you can join us on screen quickly, or is investments with growth potential so monetization part of the picture? I think, Michael, we have to talk to have a more in-depth explanation of your question. But I like the question. Anyone wants to jump at it, or we can have a private discussion with Michael on this one.
Okay, I can.
Oh.
If you want, for example, in our system, the module 2, which is PCIS I talk about, is it delivers the norm, the avoided emission under the norm ISO 14064-2, and that is the beginning of the offset process if you want to sell on the carbon market. So I don't know, then of course we can monetize, but there is a lot of regulation, and we need to be very conservateur. I don't know how we say that in English. Conservateur, for doing the offset carbon offset.
Wonderful. Awesome. So merci beaucoup. Thanks, everyone. Olivier, I know you wanted to be an observer here today. So any kind of comments after seeing the dynamic of our table here before you leave?
Yeah, I mean, I could go on for discussions with everyone. Sadly, I don't have the time to do that, but I'd be really interested in exploring into much more detail how your solutions can have a positive impact on agriculture and services that we offer, food producers for their services that they're providing to the environment by the choices that they're making and the way that they choose to harvest the land. And perhaps if I had a question, it would be on that front. Not probably all of you guys are tackling this question, but I heard Michael speak to it a little bit, is that where's the technology on how do you evaluate ecosystemic services that are rendered by the land and the way you're choosing to harvest it, and how far along are we in being able to quantify these different types of ecosystemic services in terms of CO2 sequestration?
And I could start us out there. So one of the things we noticed at Agrio is, so we start with the plot of land, the property. And one of the things we've noticed that in the trade finance world, there's other companies that are actually tracking shipments around the world for the carbon emissions of the shipment. And incidentally, whether or not they go through the Suez Canal, which they don't because apparently there's high fees, so they go around Africa, which increases the carbon emissions to the world. And then what we do is we take them back to the port when they pick up and do the pick up the shipment, and then the trade finance takes place. We actually provide a score as to where is those crops coming from, and even if those crops are coming from a field of 100 hectares, does that 100 hectares have the ability to produce that amount or yield that amount of crop? Because we find in the world that there's some places where they're aggregating crops from multiple fields and then saying it's coming from one field when there's no way possible it could come from that field. And the reason why is they're deforesting lands around the world in order to produce crops. And you can see it in the satellite images. In the middle of the Amazon rainforest, you'll see a crop field that's been put up, and we know for a fact it was put up in 2017 because it was rainforest before 2017, and now it's crop field after.
All right, thanks a lot.
Awesome. Thank you very much. Well, thank you, everyone. I don't know if there is one last remark. Maybe Nada would like... merci, Olivier. Have a great day. Bye-bye. So maybe Nada, if you want to wrap up your experience as well with this table, or one last remark before I let you go, because I know I told you 3:30 max, but like we went a bit above. Thanks again, everyone, for taking the time. I know we will talk with the startups, Grant, as well as Andrew and Nada for further discussions, etc. I don't know, Nada, if you want to wrap up your table, because basically it's your table with Desjardins, but Desjardins decided that, unfortunately, we all have constraints, and you know that. Just unmute yourself. Non, Nada, t'es encore en mute, je pense. Non, peut-être rafraîchir au pire. Mais en haut à droite, like you have your... do you see the mic, little mic button? Can you try to refresh? Okay, so we'll wait a bit for Nada to come back. But I know we still have like 25% in the room. Thank you very much for everyone who's staying with us. You were supposed to go to the booth by now. Go. No, I'm just kidding. So again, like the purpose here. Oh, here you go. Merci, Nada.
Super. Oui, ben, pardon. Donc, non, j'ai vraiment trouvé ça, les échanges intéressants. I really do appreciate that some startups are really focusing on that challenge. I think you have all great information to share. It gives us a lot to think about as an organization, and I'm sure there's going to be complementary solution to work on in the future. So it's just a matter of finding the middle ground and just exploring more, or giving probably the perspective of a firm like KPMG working with client with the experience of Andrew and his team. So it's going to be interesting to see where that goes.
Wonderful. Well, thank you very much, Nada. Thank you also for your support in this endeavor. I know that we are in discussion now to talk about like a challenge during Cooperaton and even down further. But right now, it's also about what we can also collaborate with the startups. We will work. So it's kind of like almost two separate streams here, but it also gives this kind of like setting as Nada highlighted. So thanks again for your trust and your engagement in that part. We will follow up with everyone here around the table to further the B2B private meetings. Yeah, thank you very, very much for your time. Insights were amazing. I learned a lot today. And as well, I hope like some of you did as well. And this kind of exploration was valuable for you. We're always looking for feedback, obviously. So feel free to reach out to anyone on the Montreal New Tech team or the Desjardins team for this kind of feedback. My colleague Simran here is also looking for feedback so that we can do better. I think the email of the feedback and this kind of like meetings is edge@mtlnewtech.com. Simran, can you write the email, please, in case you want to further this and dive deeper into it? Other than that, I mean, definitely very exciting topic and very exciting to see the solutions there. And your appetite to actually discuss, collaborate, and hopefully get shit done together. Merci tout le monde. Bonne journée. Absolutely. Thank you, everyone. Bye-bye.